Mills was my maiden name, so most of you probably know my dad, Steve Mills, that works over at White's. I was born and raised here. But before I get into that, let me get into my more recent story. I'm grateful you're here tonight, Andy, because when I saw you walk in, I was like, oh my God, the cops are here. Like, I'm still not quite over that fear of you guys, even though I've been doing very well for a while. And it just makes me really think, I've been thinking about this for several years. I can't wait. I'll be 5 years sober in September of this year.
Amen.
And by the grace of God and by the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have no credit to myself. But I really want to give my 5-year token to Officer Bob, if I can say it, Josh Babcock. Because he was one of the arresting officers that came to my house the night I was arrested. And, of course, it's taken me several years to get to that point where I'm, grateful for that. But, many times when I was sitting in prison, I would think about, just how grateful I am that I was arrested. I was in deep. And when I say I was in deep, I was in deeper than I even knew I was in. And, I may have known it, but, I never had a fear of really anything. As long as I was high and I had drugs, I thought I was invincible. I could do whatever I wanted, get away with whatever. And I'll never forget that night I was arrested. Boy, if I was ever scared, it was then. And I was actually 7 months pregnant with my son when I got arrested. So, that's not something I'm proud of, but that's my disease of my addiction. Nothing kept me sober. Not being pregnant, not my kids, not my parents. Absolutely nothing could keep me sober. And finally, when I was facing 100 years in prison, it was enough to scare me to figure out there's got to be another way to live. I've been in and out of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for almost 20 years. My first DUI was when I was 21, and I had a near fatal car accident, and I have a face full of metal from it, and my boyfriend with me had a broken neck. That didn't keep me sober. They did enough. I'm grateful even then that the courts had me go to the program, to meetings, because I got my foot in the door and I got a little taste of it, but I thought, I am not one of you guys. That's just not me. I don't know who you people are, but I'm not one of you. And they convinced me, they did, help me believe that I was an alcoholic. So then, for many years after that, I just used that as an excuse. Of course I drink, of course I do. I am an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. That's what we do. I wasn't willing to get sober. I wanted some kind of magic pill because I want that instant gratification, and that never worked. So, for years I just, when alcohol didn't work for me, because I was afraid of getting caught or getting, having another wreck. And for a long time I wouldn't drink because of my car wreck. So then I just went to drugs. So I'm okay, I can maintain drugs a little better and I won't wreck my car and stuff like that. And for years I got away with it. By the grace of God I did. But, I got arrested in 2014. And actually this month, next week is when I got arrested in 2014. And, as Judge Blanton back then, he let me out. And then I got charged with another A felony. It was just crazy. So anyway, I was put in jail, and then I was released to go to Bloomington, to the Amethyst house 2 weeks before I had my son. And, I just thank God that I was sitting in jail for those few months before I had him, because, I probably would have lost him had I not. Because for one, I wouldn't have been sober, so if he made it through my using, then CPS would have came in and taken him because I wouldn't have been clean. But during that time at the Amethyst house, I got a real taste of what recovery is and a real taste of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my drug of choice is meth and hard drugs, anything really. Alcohol's not, my drug of choice, but it always starts with alcohol for me. And I, got really involved in the Alcoholics Anonymous program in Bloomington because there's a lot more women in the program, and it just seemed to be a stronger community of fellowship. So that's, and I was thinking before I spoke, this last week and praying and talking to God, God, I don't have a ministry. What am I supposed to get up here and say? you talk to him, he's like, Alcoholics Anonymous is your ministry. Like, you know, God is very much a part of that program. Even though in the program we don't call it Jesus, you know, for me, my higher power is Jesus. And so I don't ever want to water that down. You know, I get confused, you know, in AA, we kind of have to water that part down. Because there's a lot of people that struggle with, you know, the church part and God part. And so, you know, like, we just teach people whatever you can believe in, you know, if it's, you pray to a doorknob, pray to a doorknob, and eventually, you know, people's spirituality grows. But back to my arrest. So I was sober for a couple years, and actually, I think today was my 2-year anniversary way back then. So I saw it on my Facebook memories, and I'm like, oh gosh, there's some relevant dates, you know, things happening in this, you know, little couple-week period. But shortly after that, I relapsed again. Still facing 100 years in prison. Knowing dang good and well, I'm like going to prison for the rest of my life if I don't get my life straight. Life was good. I was working. I had a sponsor. I was going to meetings. I was doing all the things, but there were still some underlying issues that I hadn't dealt with. And for me, getting out of balance, and I am full of pride, so I don't ever want to ask for help. You know, I had my son. He was born while I lived at the Amethyst house, and when we moved out of there, you know, I was used to having 9 women at my beck and call, constantly wanting, you know, to carry my son around. And then we moved out with another girl, and I worked a job and I loved that job. I was taking care of people with disabilities, and I worked 7 days on and 7 days off. So my life was really out of balance, and I didn't know how to ask for help. I needed to deal with some other things, and the fear aspect of all my prison time. You know, I mean, I think there was a little part of me that was like, ah, screw it, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, may as well go out with a bang. So I drank, and it was like the 4th of July. Me and a girl went and watched fireworks and happened to sit at I guess it was like a Legion place. I didn't even know that when we pulled up to park in the parking lot. And she kept talking, you know, she's like, let's just have a drink. And I'm like, no, I'm fighting. You know, and I knew what to do. I knew to like run from that situation or pick up my phone and call my sponsor, do something. But I just finally caved, and I'm like, okay. Well, that one beer turned into 6, and then the very next day, I mean, it is like as soon as I put that alcohol in my system, like I instantly the obsession came, and the cravings came. Like it was like a light switch went off in me. Like everything that I just worked so hard to get to was just like completely erased, and I was too prideful, too scared to admit it. And I just continued on, and then I was drinking at work, hiding that, and I was like, and back to that vicious cycle for me. Like, okay, I can't get caught drinking at work, and I can't seem to stop, so I'll just, you know, get on some meth again, because I can maintain that. That is my alcoholic thinking. I mean, you know, I can convince myself of the craziest things. If I am not connected to the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor, and I don't run things by her, like, I can convince myself of some pretty good stuff. And, like, that's why I run everything through her. And sometimes she'd call me and be like, I think you can figure this out. I'm like, no, I'm scared, you know, like, just tell me I'm on the right path or wrong path here. So anyway, so I got doing meth again, and within, you know, a month after doing it, I was dealing again, because it's not